Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop, Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. And it is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, May 9th, 2025. And I'm trying a new stream software tonight. So it probably looks different. And hopefully it is clear and everything, just like it is on YouTube. I'm streaming to YouTube from a different browser. So let me just check for a second. Okay. I see Carolyn's here. Good evening. Good evening. So it's just basically a different browser and a different window and a whole different studio that I have to get used to. So this is just a trial. I got a free trial, and I'll see how it looks. How does it look and sound? And here's Astroscoop here. And this is powered by StreamYard. That's interesting. All right. So we'll wait a few minutes to see. Hopefully people still get the same message as I usually do in YouTube, in the YouTube studio. And worst case scenario is I could close this out and go back. I could go back to YouTube, go on the other browser and probably do that sort of thing. But we'll wait a few minutes and see if anyone else pops in. Not sure if this will tell me how many people are in the chat. Not sure. But anyways, we'll take it slowly. But May 9th, 2025, Astroscoop, Eastern Standard Time. And welcome. We are in the Taurus 2 period. And I talked about Taurus-Decan last week, and we talked about the early part of Taurus the week before that. And tonight, we're going to talk about Taurus, the 3rd decan, and the very last part of Taurus before we talk about the Taurus-Gemini cusp, which will be coming right around the 19th of May, 19th or 20th, depending on the degrees and the system. But we've had a good time the last few weeks talking about Taurus. We're going to continue that, finish that up, and we'll talk about how Taurus 3 people are different than a Taurus born this past week. If you know someone that's born between, well, right up until today, actually, or tomorrow, depending on the degree, and would be Taurus 2. And then if you know anyone between April 25th and like that first decan of Taurus, and how they differ from Taurus 1 and Taurus 2. And then what does it mean coming up to Taurus-Gemini cusp? What does that mean for late Taurus energy? Well, how's everyone feeling? Very intense cosmic energy lately. And I know I felt a little exhausted kind of lately after I was sick. So I'm getting over that. I've been very busy. And I had a mini vacation last month. So between the travel and getting sick and the holiday, Easter and everything, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind. But what's interesting is when you look at your personal planets, but also your outer planets or your ascendant, midheaven, and you look at these transits, you look at Uranus, Taurus, look at this Pluto in Aquarius, which is now gone retrograde. It's amazing the subtle, nuanced touches that these planets start to activate. They either continue a lesson that you're already involved in, they continue it, or they finish it up, or possibly halt it and pause it on the retrograde, and then you come back to it at a later point. So one quick example is the early Pluto in Aquarius, which is at 3 tonight, 3 retrograde right here. 3 retrograde Aquarius. So when Pluto went in Aquarius, obviously it went to 0 and then it went to 1. So it hit those early Aquarius people that are January 23rd, 24th, 25th. So then it went away, right? It went station and started to go direct. Now we're coming back. So if you're an Aquarius or have an Aquarius planet at 3 or even 2, it's coming back to kiss that planet again and to have a little dance with you and a little talk again to say what's been happening these last few months, especially like a good solid 6 months. What's been happening to that Aquarius planet, and where is it in your chart, what house, and what's happening in your life, and what's been shaken up, and what is shaking with you, sort of thing. So that's just another opportunity to revisit the early fixed signs, but especially anyone that has an early, anyone that has a 1, 2, or 3 degree Aquarius planet, that is, or even 4. I mean, even 4, even though it's going backwards, it's still very, very close, which would be a Capricorn. It's a Capricorn Aquarius Pluto placement. It's not a true Aquarius placement because it's closer to the Capricorn cusp, but that's intense. And we'll talk about that a little later when we do the transits. So if you're new to the live stream, again, I'm using a whole new window, and it's kind of throwing me off a little bit because I'm just getting used to it. So please bear with me. I appreciate your patience. And we'll talk about Taurus. We're going to talk about celebrities like I always do. And we'll talk about, in the middle, we'll talk about some transits. And then at the end, we'll finish up, see if anyone has a question or an example that we want to illuminate or shine light on. And one thing I was thinking about for these live streams is anyone that feels comfortable. I know there's a lot of people. I know there's several people that pop in and out every couple of weeks, but they're not necessarily, they don't chat or they don't show their name, which is fine. I get the privacy thing. But if you do want, if you want a question asked or answered, I should say, please, I would love to make it more interactive so that not only for me, but that so other people in the chat or someone on the replay can they may have the same question, and then eventually to get a group going that's more interactive between all of you and not having just me talk all the time, sort of thing. But yeah, thank you so much for being patient. If this stream software seems comfortable, I may keep it, but like I said, I'm in the beta trial period for this, so we'll see how it all pans out. All right, so if you're new or you catch the live stream, my live streams are here, usually on YouTube, here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. Last week it was Saturday, so it's either Fridays or Saturdays at 8 p.m., sometimes 7 p.m. So just make a note of that and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Subscribe, click all or personalize, and you'll get those notifications so that you don't miss a video and you don't miss the live stream notifications. So last week we talked about Taurus 2 being ruled by Venus, and Taurus 2 people have a co-ruler that's Mercury. And today is the 9th, tomorrow's the 10th, so it finishes up the Taurus 2 period. Now tonight we have the sun. The sun is at 19 degrees of Taurus, which is exactly ending the second decan of Taurus, which is the Mercury decan. And then in about a day and a half, right over 20 going into 21 degrees, then we get into this Taurus 3 decan, which is May 11th to the 18th or 19th. Now, Taurus people born this week, coming up, again, if you know anyone born between, or knew anyone born between May 11th and the 18th or 19th, male or female, and you'll really see this when we talk about the celebrities. This is out of all the Earth sign, out of all the 3 Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, and out of all the decans, the 3 decans of each sign and the cusp periods, this week may be the wildest. It's a wild card. I know I say that every few months about certain decans. It's a wild card for Taurus people. And it's a wild card for the zodiac periods, for all the zodiac periods throughout the year, not necessarily including the cusp periods, but the true periods, the true decans for each zodiac sign. Now, Taurus 3 people are, they are, my father was born this week, so I have a good, that's one good personal reference. But I've also known many other people that are born this week. And of course, I've done a lot of research on the celebrities. Taurus 3 people, again, May 11th to the 18th, 19th. We're talking about Venus people. But the way these Taurus people use their Venus is so different than Taurus 2, and so different than the early Taurus period. And of course, different than Aries Taurus cusp or Taurus Gemini cusp, which we're going to get in about 10 or 11 days, combining the Taurus and Gemini energies. And we bring in that Aries, that mutable air energy, which is so different, obviously, than Taurus. So Taurus 3 has a co-ruler of Saturn. And the interesting thing with Taurus people born this week is, and you'll know this if you know anyone or knew anyone, I put on the thumbnail on YouTube, are these Taurus people wild or are they stable? And that's sort of a rhetorical question. And yet there is no easy answer to that. So that's why I say this Taurus period probably is the most interesting and the most wild of all the Earth decan periods between the 3 Earth signs. Now, of course, we've been talking about Taurus, which is fixed Earth. Taurus is the first Earth sign in the zodiac, and it's the first fixed sign, being the second sign after Aries. It's still very early in the maturity of the zodiac cycle of 12 signs. If you look at it in a cosmic life cycle of someone living to 80 to 90, the Taurus is still very early, where obviously Capricorn is a much more fleshed out, mature version of an Earth sign, at least cosmologically, if that's a word, cosmically, towards the end of the zodiac as you go Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and the zodiac. And we start with Aries, and Taurus is the second sign. So now, of course, with each subsequent week of Taurus, we have a more mature version of Taurus, so to speak, and it's farther away from the early part of Taurus. So it's moving away from the pure, raw, true Venus Taurus period, if you will. Kind of like the sun sign astrology from 40 or 50 years ago, where everybody lumped all Taurus people under one category and kind of said all Taurus people are earthy, all Taurus people are loyal and stubborn. That's it. Very, very simplistic, without the nuance of the co-rulers, the degrees, any of the stars, and of course, looking into your actual planets to see what the rulership is of Venus. But also, I would look to Saturn in people born this week. People born this week have some very, very interesting stars. One of them is Capulus at 24 degrees. This equates to a sword, and this is male passion. So one thing you're going to notice about Taurus people born this week, and this is strikingly different than a Taurus born any other week that I've seen, and it's also strikingly different than the 3 Virgo decans or the 3 Capricorn decans, with the exception of Capricorn 3 people or Capricorn Aquarius cusp people, which they can be quite the characters. They can be a little bit of a wild card with the Capricorn and the Aquarius energy, absolutely. But this Taurus late energy, which is Venus ruled and co-ruled by Saturn, when it comes up on these stars, you're dealing with, it's hard to explain. you're dealing with the allure. You're dealing with this strong, earthy, sensual energy that, at least at that 24-degree mark, is male. So man or woman doesn't matter. There's a male passion, even if they're quiet, even if they're reserved, even if they're shy. There's something there. But then the kicker, which every astrologer in the world talks about, it's like 1,000 astrologers on YouTube alone that are talking about Algol, right? I'll bet you there's probably 1 million articles on Algol. I'll bet you it's at least 1 million, probably more, when you consider the entire world. So that says to me that not only has astrology blossomed in the last 4 or 5 years, modern astrology, taking it, traditional astrology and modern astrology, and kind of bringing it together, but a lot of people that were doing astrology 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, obviously a lot of people are older. Now social media has given people a new channel. So it's like, it's not like it died down for them. Like I got started in this game quite late. I wish I had started earlier, but it's never too late. But social media just now gives us astrologers and tarot people and healers and light workers and all this good stuff a whole nother vehicle to get our messages out. But Algol is right around 25, 26 degrees. It's the head of Medusa, which is an amazingly detailed myth. And what's interesting is Algol is female passion. So these stars, this is what makes Taurus people born this week so unique. And you'll know this especially if you have intimately known them as a family member or as a spouse or an intimate partner. They have this combination of male and female passion that they don't know how to reconcile. It is so difficult for Taurus people born this week to reconcile and balance that Venusian reserved yin energy with this male passion and almost male compulsions, but they don't necessarily excel at compassion. So think about all the derivatives of all these words from Latin or from Old English. Think about that. So a Taurus 3 can be passionate, but are they compassionate? Not necessarily. It's very hard for them to transform and understand the suffering of or pain of someone else. Now, that doesn't mean a Taurus 3 person isn't kind or sensitive or caring. Again, there is this male and female passion energy. Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. Okay. This is male and female passion energy that's vying for ascendancy. So this is what I've seen in Taurus people born this week. Now, one saving grace, one beautiful thing about people born this week, one saving grace that they have that I've noticed is they're who they are. And it's different than like an Aries, like when you meet an early Aries, right after the cusp of rebirth, you meet an Aries that's born, March 27th, 28th, right after spring starts. Those Aries people are so unmistakably who they are, right? I am. And they just come out of the floodgates with this amazing fire energy to get things done and to have these thoughts and ideas. But the early Taurus energy starts Taurus in a very raw Venusian way, slow, and starts to manifest their ideas into tangible form. And then Taurus 2 people, which we talked about last week, they become more educated and they teach and they learn and they teach because Mercury's involved. Now we come into Taurus 3 where there's Saturn, and it's almost like all this Taurus energy. It depends on the day for this person. On this Taurus 3 person, they could have a stable day and then they can have a wild day the next. Now, again, you really need to look at their Venus. Most of the Taurus 3 people I've known this week to also have a Venus that really changes up their game, like a Venus in Aries. Many Taurus people have Venus in Aries. Many Taurus people also have a Gemini Venus. So think about that. A Gemini Venus or an Aries Venus really changes up the landscape for a Taurus as far as their personality, their social urge, and how they are in love. And of course, Mars is very important for other reasons. But I would look to Venus, I would look to Saturn. Fairest of all, thank you, welcome. Taurus, Sun, and Aries, North Node. The North Node is 0 degrees. I have Gemini Venus. Okay. Yeah, I've known so many Taurus people. My father had Aries Venus. I don't really remember his degree, which is not a great Venus. She doesn't love Aries, especially in males. So that doesn't mean a Venus and Aries person can't be warm and caring and love, but they have to work at it. They really have to work at to reconcile that. And a woman with Venus in Aries, she would be more in touch with her masculine side or her masculine principles. But again, that's not necessarily going to be easier for her either in love. But the Venus in Gemini, which a lot of Taurus people have, I mean, that's a wild card in itself. Pleasing manners, more flexibility, but also needs to be in charge of its liaisons, so it's not trapped, right? And sort of thing. But this Algol is so amazing. And what's interesting is I mentioned early on in my Taurus, one of my Taurus decans, that Taurus people often see themselves as tough and no nonsense. Taurus could be like the strong silent type, especially the men, strong silent type, but underneath they could be like jelly and they could be big teddy bears and very warm and loyal. I mean, you know, Taurus people, a secure, positive, evolved Taurus that has amazingly beautiful, earthy, salt of the earth qualities, especially Taurus and Capricorn. Probably even more so than Virgo. But Taurus and Capricorn, when they're mature and evolved and they're secure, there's wonderful, beautiful, strong salt of the earth energy there that no other signs have, at least express that in an easy way. But the Taurus people born this week, I can't think of any I've known that have really been able to reconcile those male and female sides. And again, I think a lot of it depends on if they, you know, the intensity and determination of Taurus here comes with, here's a word that most is not usually equates with Taurus, is daring. Taurus people this week are daring. Now that doesn't sound like Taurus, right? Sounds more immediately like Aries or Sagittarius. How is a Taurus daring? Well, but if you consider these stars in this constellation, I mean, Algol, which is it relates to alcohol. It relates to the ghoul, Algol. So the Chinese, and I think the Arabs as well, referred to the Medusa myth, the Gorgon Medusa, and the head of snake, you know, the head full of snakes and staring and turning to stone and that whole thing. So the Algol is very called the Demon Star. It's a metaphorical, you know, it's just like the death card in tarot. It's metaphorical. It doesn't necessarily mean literal, although it could. Depends on how far people take it. The way I look at it, and I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, but if I was, I would look for people born this week with the Algol degree. I would hope that if I was going to get involved with someone, I would make sure that they were mentally stable. Now, I don't mean that as a dig to Taurus people or anything. I'm not saying that Taurus people are mentally unstable. All I mean is, based on these degrees, the tendency, the compulsions, those passions. And another thing, Taurus people this week, they can be sexy or sensual as hell or heaven. they got it. They have it. Even if there's no fire there, you know, they have that Venus. It's like taking Venus and it's like taking Venus and putting a sterno burner underneath it. I mean, they got it. They got the love passion there. It's not like a Scorpio passion. They're opposite. Not a Scorpio like. It's different, you know, but it's there. And so it's like a snapshot. You get them on a good day, again, where they feel safe and comfortable and secure. They are going to be a hoot to be around, and they're going to be more of a more fun version and a more exciting version of Taurus that's able to take more risks and be more daring with that Taurus energy, which is not always easy for Taurus because Taurus is usually cautious. So that's why I said on the thumbnail, wild or stable. Well, they're both. They crave both. And another reason why it's difficult for these Taurus people to reconcile that is they crave that stability. You know, I watched a couple of reels from some young female astrologers today. It's really nice to see some Gen Z and millennial young people getting into astrology, really young, but it's wonderful. It's really good. You know, it makes me feel old, but it's awesome. It doesn't matter what age. If people are tuning in to the information and you have wonderful things to share and wisdom, then you got to do it. You have to rock it. But when they're reconciling this, it's like they want that. One woman I watched today, she said, Taurus is all about comfort and Scorpio is all about transformation. So she said that really well. And that is true. That is that polarity. So Taurus generally wants comfort. Taurus can endure discomfort and hang in there to meet their, you know, meet their goals. Taurus can always hang in there, but they prefer the comfort. But they also prefer excitement. So Taurus people this week are easily bored. Again, so there's this combination of craving stability and craving excitement at the same time. Very, very hard for committed relationships or marriage. But then again, I would think that a Taurus 3 person would be someone that would, most Taurus people, I would imagine, I don't know one Taurus person, and I'm serious about this. I don't know one Taurus person in my family or friend circle that's single and that lives alone. And I've never known, I worked with some Taurus people that I didn't know their home life, but I've never known a Taurus person in my circles that hasn't been in a committed relationship or married. So that's interesting. Now, a lot of other astrologers will say, well, you know, Taurus is Taurus. It's fixed. It's Earth. You know, once Taurus locks in, they're not going to give up, which is true. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think there is a, you know, there is that comfort zone, that comfort level that Taurus wants to achieve. And if you can give that to them as a friend or as a spouse, then they will be very loyal to you. And Taurus people born this week can be just as loyal as the other decans. But again, there's thrown in with this Saturn seriousness, and then also this kind of craving for excitement, which partly comes from this Algol, you know, sort of thing. And what it also does is, as these late degrees of Taurus get closer to the Taurus-Gemini cusp, you start to have a mercurial influence, which from Gemini, from Mercury. So you start to have a little bit of Gemini influence even right before up into the Gemini-Taurus cusp. And the Taurus-Gemini cusp people that we know and that I know, I can see like glimpses of the Taurus in them, and we'll talk more about that next week. But I also see a lot of the Mercury, the combination. But this person is, in a lot of ways, they have a high profile. So think about it. Your basic Taurus person doesn't necessarily want to be fussed over. Taurus people like to they like to provide for people. They like to give affection, support, protection, nurturing to you. That's what the Taurus person likes to do. And the Taurus planet likes to do, is to nurture and support. And again, that's another huge positive for Taurus. When they lock in and they give that to you, it's pretty much, you're golden. It's there as long as you respect it. But they also have a high profile in the sense that I mentioned this last week, that Taurus people, it's really important for Taurus people to have good habits. It's important for all of us, but Taurus planets, any of the fixed signs that get into fixed patterns of behavior, right? All the 4 fixed signs get into fixed patterns of behavior with certain placements, and there's tendencies, depending on the angles and aspects, that can get activated or even deactivated in a house or at a time, certain times of your life and certain cycles, especially every 7 years. But this high profile, kind of high strung nature that Taurus 3 people have is very counterintuitive to their Venus, if that makes any sense. The positive of it is natural expression. These are some of the most natural people you'll ever meet. They don't put on airs. They're not generally not fake. They are who they are. And if you really like or love them, they're wild and sensual and you love them. If you're turned off by them, you're probably really turned off, or you can only handle them for a short time. Because they can have wild ideas, and then they have that Taurus, well, I'm going to do it no matter what. You could try to change my mind, but you're not really going to change my mind. But because they're more daring, there's a sense that you could talk them into doing something different. But they don't want the restriction if it's at the cost of their own nature, so to speak. So again, habits are so important. So rebelliousness is absolutely a danger here with Taurus 3 people. Rebelliousness towards whatever, and it's not rebelliousness like you think of like an Aquarius rebelliousness. You know, Aquarius is a truly unique individual. I know knowledge and space. With Taurus 3, it's more along the lines of, I need to be as comfortable as possible in my own space, and I can't have anyone or anything, mess with that and touch that, so to speak. So there's definitely rebelliousness versus authority. Now, again, it depends on who a Taurus 3 sees as an authority. A Taurus 3 person isn't necessarily a dominant or bossy individual, or someone that's going to want to dominate you or boss you around necessarily. But they will not react kindly or gently to you to try to reform, revise, or correct them. And I mentioned last week that an angry or insecure Taurus, look out. And I think most people in astrology agree with that, male or female, especially the men though. And that goes for Taurus planets too. Taurus planets, it's really bad news bears when the Taurus planet just keeps on plotting in a calm way and starts to repress or hold things inside and doesn't find a release valve for that tension. And here's another thing about Taurus too. Taurus can get discouraged and almost depressed, and Taurus can have little depressive or tantrum spells, the way I like to put them. They're little tantrum spells, and they're not like an Aries. They're not tantrum like an Aries. It's kind of different. It's more of like I don't know. It's more like a kid in elementary school or something, like an older kid. And Taurus people would really benefit by, before they react with rebelliousness, or because everything has to be on their terms and so natural, that they could listen and see the possibility that they need to revise or transform which is their opposite is Scorpio 3 6 months from now. We'll be talking about Scorpio 3 in November. That they should tread carefully, and it's opposed Scorpio 3. So the Scorpio 3 and Taurus 3 polarity, the opposites, is about a zone, being in your zone, whether that's a comfort zone or slightly out of it. And the Scorpio 3 about late Scorpio, about more transformative energy. And that doesn't mean that you have to change just to change. You know, sometimes a Scorpio person would want to push a Taurus out of their place just because they feel like it's been so long, something needs to change, something needs to be volcanic and move. That's not necessarily the case. You know, getting caught in a groove isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's like a song, right? When you like a good song, and I mean a really well-written song, I don't mean a superficial pop song with 2 or 3 chords that's done on a computer. I mean a real song, a really good song from like back in the day that has a groove, like some of Michael Jackson's old music, you know, Quincy Jones production, or you know, things like that, that has it locks in and has a groove for that 4 or 5 minutes. It's in a groove and it doesn't change, but it's not boring and it works. So that's kind of Taurus too. Taurus likes to get a groove, and then they just, Fierce will say they just need acceptance. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And we have to remember too that Taurus is the second sign right after Aries. We're dealing with very young energy. We're also dealing with insecure energy, right? You think of kids, we think of kids from babies from 1 to 10, you know, grammar school, you know, from preschool to grammar school children. There are so many changes there, especially from like 7 to 10. Right after 7, the personalities form. But there's so many different changes in kids then. And there's so much insecurity that kids have. I mean, even kids that are naturally talented or smart, or even gifted, it's like that natural, am I good enough? Am I adequate? Taurus will ask themselves, am I valuable? How valuable am I to you as a person? How valuable am I to you as a company? That is the key to Taurus, especially Taurus 3 people with Saturn. And if they don't feel valued, or they don't feel like they're giving value, and they want it from you too, they can be very demanding about that value. So if they're a neat freak, or they're obsessive about their environment, which on many Taurus planets can be like that, they are going to want things a certain way, especially setup wise, physically. They may want things a certain way, and they may expect you and be demanding of you to maintain that, like they're maintaining that. Because Taurus is the maintainer of the zodiac, maintenance. You know, anything Taurus does, positive or negative, they're going to maintain. If they see value in it, even if it's bad, they will probably maintain it or rationalize it. So again, Taurus people really need good habits. And a lesson is to balance their calm and chaotic impulses. These are Taurus people they're calm and chaotic at the same time. Now, I would love to talk to some more Taurus people, especially people born this week, and find out what your Venus is in, maybe what your Saturn's in, obviously what year you are, you know, coming up on cycles. But the late degrees of Taurus, that combination. Now, I think to myself, what would help a Taurus 3 person in their chart as an astrologer? What would I look for that could either make things worse or help their sun in Taurus? I'm just talking about the sun in Taurus here. That would be, you know, between, let's say, 21 and like 20 to 27 degrees of Taurus. Well, obviously I've looked to Venus. I would look to the aspects of Venus and the sun. If, let's say, a sun in Taurus born this week had Venus in Leo. Okay, so Venus in Leo is a warm placement for love. It's not good. It's astrologically, it's not good. It's not bad. It's kind of neutral. But the Sun and Venus would have reception. The Sun in Leo is really well placed. Venus would be touching the Sun. And if Sun in Taurus was in Venus, that would also be well placed. So that would be well received. A Sun in Taurus with a Venus in Leo. So even if they were square, even if that formed a square aspect, they would be in mutual reception. So that would help. Now, let's say this Taurus person had, let's pick something else. Let's like a quirky Venus in Aquarius. Let's say I had Venus in Aquarius. Boy, that would throw a monkey wrench into that Taurus, wouldn't it? So if that Taurus person had a Venus in Aquarius, their Sun in Taurus energy would have an Aquarius flavor to it. And then, of course, I would look to the house there, and I would look to aspects to Uranus to see is there anything more wild and crazy, sort of thing. But one thing about balancing the calm and the chaos is Taurus people this week, whatever they're good at, it's most likely that they've learned it in the most organic way possible. So if a Taurus person born this week sings or plays an instrument or is an athlete, or just really, really good with their hands, some kind of physical job with their hands, they probably learned it. They may have had formal lessons, but they probably most likely learned, on the job, just hands-on, and in a very organic, step-by-step way in their own not pace, but their own kind of, again, I've mentioned that Taurus can often find a pace that's not too slow or too fast based on what people think Taurus is slow. Taurus isn't always slow. Taurus just has a rhythm. Taurus likes to get into a rhythm. So if they can balance that calm and that chaos, it would behoove themselves to really find if their job is kind of more calm and boring or straight-laced, and find an activity that's more exciting for them. If their hobby is kind of calm and straight-laced, maybe then find a job that's a little more exciting and plays to their natural ways, their persuasive ways, and their ability to do things on their own terms, kind of thing. So they could be independent and dependent at the same time. And that's also kind of the essence of Taurus. Taurus can kind of be self-sufficient, because Taurus is a reserved, introverted energy, but it can also be quite dependent on others for that sense of love, acceptance, as she said, and also their values, feeling valued, and the value proposition, right? It's like that kind of thing, return on investment, ROI. That's very important to Taurus people. But Taurus people should also realize that it's important for them to be a strong investment to us, to the other non-Taurus entity person as well. And to know your value, but also to give that value. And now I watched a couple of reels today on the Taurus-Scorpio polarity. It seems like a lot of people are on that. And we know why so many people are on that. And that's because of the full moon on Monday. And you know what? Let's go to the transits now. Oh my goodness, it's 8:45 already. Wow. I didn't realize we're cruising here. So the transits, we have the Sun at 19 of Taurus, and that's going to conjunct Algol. So right now it's a little too far away. It's 7 degrees, so we're not really going to give it yet. But a couple days. Now here's the kicker. Uranus, transiting Uranus at 26 degrees of Saturn, is going to conjunct Algol. So the Awakener, this mentally explosive, mentally erratic planet of Uranus, which is a male energy too, which is masculine energy, is going to conjunct Algol and stir up some of that late Taurus energy and passion. And the one saving grace here with this intensity is it's sextile that late Saturn in Pisces. So here we have, you can see it, So we have this is all we have here, right there. We have the 28. There we go, 28 degrees, and we have the node there. And then there's your Venus in Aries, and there's your Neptune in Aries, and your Mercury. Mercury's almost Taurus. I believe that goes in Taurus tomorrow. But this is amazing. I know I keep saying this, but there's new viewers, so I can repeat myself, I guess. To be alive right now, any of us that are alive, whether you're 1 or you're 100, to be alive right now during all these transits and aspects is truly amazing. Now, I wonder if people felt this way 150 or 200 years ago, of those people that were into astronomy or into astrology or mythology, or people that were translating texts. Were they aware, or were they had the sensation of how amazing it felt to be alive during that time? I don't know. You know, it's 2025. There was 1925. What did it feel like 100 years ago if you knew something about astrology? And then what did it feel like at 1825 if you were alive and you were aware of some of that? And then, of course, going way back to more of the ancient civilizations. But these transits, this Uranus-Algol conjunction, we won't see that in our lifetime again. We will not see that. That's not for. It's more than 100 years, I think. So the fact that we're alive to see this, whether you're at the beginning of your life, the middle, or the end, and it hits, don't forget, it hits somewhere in everybody's chart. So even someone with no Taurus planets, someone still has Taurus on a house or inside a house, and it's in their there's cosmic energy there somewhere in their houses to to activate. Now, a baby born tonight, a baby born at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, he or she would have, the sun is conjunct their descendant, the 7th house. So you have Mercury, you have Taurus at 20 degrees of Scorpio rising. You have the sun in the 6th there, and then you have Uranus, which is 26 in the 7th. So that person would all have all that Taurus energy near the 7th house of others. But it's just a truly, truly amazing time. So what do I think that really means? I may have to do a video or another live stream. Maybe we'll just talk about the Taurus degrees. But what does that really mean in a nutshell? Well, kudos to those astrologers that write these columns that are so unbelievably detail oriented. I mean, I'm detail oriented, but I don't have the patience to take 3 or 4 weeks to write one essay article like I'm sure it took some of those people. So God and Goddess bless those people that are willing to write these articles that others are reading, that are just scroll. And I go all the way down, and then I go up, and I scroll, and I try to distill it. But that late Taurus energy, right before the cusp, it's still Taurus energy. It still has Venus. So the way I look at it is, Venus, anybody can change. Anybody can change at any point in your life. You can wake up any day and start fresh. Every day is new, and every day you can make different decisions on who you are, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. And it doesn't matter if the last 100 days in a row sucked, or the last 100 days you didn't nail it at work or in your relationships or whatever, or on your YouTube channel. Tomorrow's a new day. So the Taurus energy, if a late Taurus person can change or revise themselves, it's not like work when it's a passion. I feel like they probably woke up and put the pen to the paper. Yeah, that's true. No, you're absolutely right. Yep. Yeah, I've done things in the past where I've written thousands and thousands of words in like 2 days, and it didn't feel difficult because it flowed. Yeah. And the thing about Taurus, if a Taurus person is willing to revise and change, then they'll stick with that. That's the beauty of Taurus. Taurus adopts a positive habit or a positive lifestyle or a positive pattern in their life. Guess what? That Taurus person can stick to it, and they will be determined enough and decide, you know what, I have this in my life now. I have this new person, or I have this new job, or I have this new hobby, or I just have this new way, this new routine. You know, when you think of routine, you think of Taurus and Virgo are two signs that are very much thrive on routine. Taurus and Virgo planets are very, very routine oriented. And again, that's at odds with some of the Taurus 3 need for excitement and change. You know, whether that's change within a marriage or a relationship, or change with friends, or you know, work sort of thing. If a Taurus 3 person has a loyal family, a loyal spouse or partner, and they also have a job that's stable but maybe allows them some freedom to work when they want and how they want, but yet still consistently, then a Taurus 3 person could be quite happy. But the Taurus 3 person really needs to adopt those positive habits and stick with those, and kind of change that up, instead of always looking for the thrill and the daring of compulsive bad habits. So that's something that really stands out to me, especially with Taurus 3 people, with the combination of Venus and Saturn there. But there's a lot to like about Taurus 3 people, and there's a lot of goodness there. Again, especially when they're feeling secure, and that sort of thing. I've known people in my life as well that have had this degree, especially the Algol degree, 25, 26, and 27. I've known some people that had the moon at that, and also Mars. And it's interesting because the Taurus Mars people that I've known that have the late degree, it's not pure Taurus energy, because again, this is what's so fascinating about when you get a reading from me, or you get a reading from the next astrologer, and then you get a reading from another astrologer. Everyone has wisdom. Whether that wisdom is intellectual, philosophical, psychic, ancient, whatever it is, you know, the next astrologer is going to have wisdom that I don't have. And that's good. That's a good thing. But a good astrologer is going to notice those patterns and notice that if someone's Mars is at Algol, as opposed to a Mars that's an Aries Taurus cusp, a Mars that's 2 degrees of Taurus, that would be an Aries Taurus cusp, that's wildly different. It's still Mars and Taurus. It's still going to be a dogmatic energy, but with that, you know, with that female passion, it's going to, I can't even explain it. From the people I've known, I can't explain it. You just have to know. You have to know enough people and see it and observe it to see how that works. Because there's that caution of Taurus, but there's also daring, and they need a thrill and excitement of like getting through a project and be like, hell yeah, I did it again. Look what I got, or look what I bought. Look what I won. Look what I gambled on. Like that's a thrill for Taurus. Taurus needs it. Even if they're quiet about it, even if they're quiet, they may keep that from you, and they may just seem calm on the surface. And that's also that polarity of Taurus and Scorpio, where there's so much with these two signs underneath. It's not just Scorpio. Everyone's always talking about and doing reels about how the still waters run deep and everything with Scorpio's underneath. Well, same thing with Taurus. Same thing. Taurus is just more Venus, and Taurus just, they'll tell you they're hungry more, right? They're going to say, I'm hungry more and I'm getting crabby more than a Scorpio would. So I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want to get comfortable, or else, you know, you mess with the bull, you get the horns. That's what your Taurus friend might tell you. But there's a lot there. So that's the balance. Now with these transits, this also occurs with late fixed signs. So I talked about early fixed signs with Pluto, and actually, let me see if I can do this with 5 and 9. I'm going to try to share my screen, and I haven't done it on this browser, so I'm going to try to do that. Bear with me for a second. All right, let's see. hold on. Let me see. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. I think we'll get here. Okay. Can you see? Can you? All right. Can you gals see that or no? Or you still see me? Okay. Wait. Hold on. Hold on. I have a chart to show you. All right. There we go. All right. So finally, this finally came up. I don't know how big this is for all of you, but if you can't see this, just let me know in the chat and I'll try to zoom it. But here's a little bit of what we've been talking about, and here's what I watched 3 or 4 reels of today, and I probably saw at least 100 reels on this full moon in my feed today between X and Instagram, which is great. So here we have, I just did it for New York, Eastern Standard Time, 12:56 p.m. on the 12th. Here we have the full moon chart. Let's see, which way to go. And, okay. So when the full moon hits on Taurus on Monday, it's at 22 degrees, and the moon here is 22 of Scorpio. So that is approaching. Here you can see Uranus, see how close it is to the sun. Here's that approaching that Sun-Uranus conjunction towards Algol. But the sun, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And when I listen to other astrologers, it's interesting that the old school astrologers that I watch, and most of them, yes, are older than me, but I don't mean just in age. I mean old school in terms of more old school. They may have written a book, or, you know, they're coming from the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s kind of version. They would look at this in one way. Then you have your sidereal or Vedic astrologers that are going to look at this in another way. And then you have your shamanic, or, you know, you have people that are looking at the degrees, but they're looking at the deeper psychological aspects of what this means. And then yet others are looking at it astrologically with a touch of mythology, which is probably the way I'm looking at it. So you have astrologers all talking about that this week, all looking at this probably similar chart. In sidereal, it'd be slightly different, and coming up with all kinds of different lessons about what this energy means, how to integrate it, you know, and fairest of all, I've been employing the old ways in alchemy and integrating them into the new. Wow, oh, that's awesome. I have come up with theories on alchemy and holistic medicines using the elements. That's awesome. Oh yeah, medical astrology. I don't do that, but that is a very, very, very much needed branch for people to get into. Absolutely, very, very much so. Now, what stands out to me here. Now, I could look at this in a very superficial astrological way, where a lot of astrologers are just going to pinpoint and go, "Ooh, an intense Scorpio moon. Oh my," and leave it at that. Scorpio moons are intense. All right, Scorpio moon. The biggest thing here, okay, this is not a true Scorpio moon either. If this were somewhere between 5 and 10 degrees of Scorpio at a different time of the month or a different year, it would be an early Scorpio. It would be all Pluto. So this is a Scorpio 3 placement, just like the Taurus 3 placement. And the Scorpio moon energy, it's so hard to talk about Scorpio moons because so much of it's already been talked about Scorpio moon. It's almost like no matter what I say, I'm either repeating what someone else says, or I'm repeating myself from last year, or it's almost like we're all reading from the same script from 50 years ago. Scorpio moon. Here's the thing. Everybody's always saying how Scorpio is not ruled by Pluto and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Now, I'm contrarian to that. I have a bone to pick with most astrologers that are so keen on Scorpio being Mars. Scorpio is partly Mars. Aries is all Mars, not Scorpio. I will wholeheartedly hold on to that. Aries is Mars, Mars is Aries. When you think of pure Aries energy, or ARES, mythological God Aries energy, in a man or woman, it doesn't matter. It's Aries. Now, I know why, and I see, and I understand astrologically, and I understand philosophically why so many astrologers discount the Mars with traditional modern astrology, the Mars rulership, and give it more to like 80% to Pluto and 20% to Mars kind of thing. And I give it more like 80% Mars, maybe 20%. I'm sorry, 80% Pluto, 20% Mars. Now, why do I think the moon in Scorpio is more Pluto? So you have to consider the base needs very strong, because my counterpart is Scorpio and I'm Taurus. Wow. Awesome. Lions and tigers and scorpions. Oh my. That's awesome. See, that's a beautiful example. I love it when someone has a real-time example. Scorpio energy, let's just start there, no matter where it is in the chart. Scorpio energy is alchemy, right? Everybody says that. The magicians say that. The healers say that. The psychics say that. People that have talked to people that have passed on that are Scorpio, that's what they're telling them. We all know that. Scorpio is alchemy. Scorpio is the alchemist. Wherever Scorpio is in your chart, whatever planet touches Scorpio, there is untapped magic and power there. Absolutely. But if we consider that the moon in Scorpio, I think why Scorpio gets so much buzz is because Scorpio is both masculine and feminine. Now, how is that? Well, if you subscribe that Scorpio is partly ruled by Mars, because Aries and Scorpio are Martian energy, there's an implication there that it's masculine and it's male energy. It's masculine expression or masculine aggression. But the moon, Scorpio, is Pluto. So Pluto is very different than Mars in its application. Pluto is more potent and more concentrated, like a bomb. And maybe inside there's raw Mars energy, but it's closed, it's held. But let's not forget, Scorpio is a water sign. Water. Water. You know, Scorpio is so different than Aries. And so when you're looking at the moon in Scorpio, we're dealing with, now, if anyone has a natal moon in Scorpio and it happens to be conjunct this transiting moon, that's a wonderful time to integrate and heal the wounds. Now, Scorpio moons, they know pain and suffering all too well. But here's the thing. Most of the time, you will never, ever know it. I don't care if your husband or wife is right next to you. You're not going to know it. So is there a sign in the zodiac that is more skillful at concealing things than Scorpio? No. So that's not Mars. Think about that. Concealment, secrets, consolidation of power, that is not Mars. Mars is energy. Mars is thrust. Mars is more phallic. Mars is expression. Mars is quicker. If you push an Aries, it's not going to take too much for that Aries to want to push you back. And that may be physical, it may be metaphorical. But most likely that Aries person or planet is going to push you back. If you push a Scorpio, metaphorically, the Scorpio may or may not think, I want this battle, or I don't want this battle. You may push that Scorpio and nothing will ever happen. They'll walk away and they won't get revenge in 10 years. That may be one scenario. You push Scorpio the wrong way and they don't do anything that minute, but then 6 months or a year later, they're still thinking about it and they see you, they may bring it up or they may push you back then. So if Pluto is concealment, if Scorpio is concealment, that's much more Pluto than Mars. And Scorpio more than any other sign is always struggling with exposure. So a moon in Scorpio person, there's no other moon sign that is more difficult for them to expose themselves. And obviously I don't mean that physically, in every way, psychic, philosophically, emotionally. So the lesson there is for Scorpio moon people, the lesson is, this is overly simplified, but the lesson is control is an illusion. Control is an illusion. Now, we all want control, and we all have Scorpio somewhere in our chart, even if we don't have major Scorpio planets or rising. We all have Scorpio somewhere. We all have 8th house. So there's no one that's breathing on the planet that doesn't have some sort of Pluto influence somewhere in their chart. I have Jupiter in Scorpio. That's my only placement. It's an outer placement, obviously, but I do have it. Jupiter is expansion. Scorpio is investigative. I suppose I'm a philosophical investigator with Jupiter and Scorpio. But that's my one and only Scorpio placement. But I have known so many Scorpio moons. I've known so many Venus Scorpios. I've known so many Sun and Scorpios. I have an amazing affinity, I guess, and karma, I guess you will, with people with major Scorpio. I have known so many people with Scorpio stelliums. It's not even funny. And that Scorpio moon, and that's why I go back to my point of black and white and gray. Space, logical. Yeah, that's a good point. Ferris of All says, it's been a struggle to get him to think in the heart space, has very logical to logical. Yeah, see, that goes back to the concealment. Isn't it amazing how Scorpio is so intense and emotional? And how can they be so cool and icy and logical at the same time? That's why Scorpio energy makes such amazing detectives, cops, anything that requires deep investigative work, research, scientists, lab. That's why Scorpio is so good at that, because they have that icy, steely mind. But the moon in Scorpio is not generally well placed. Most astrologers agree that Miss Moon there, she doesn't like Scorpio in the sense. Doesn't mean there isn't beauty there. It just means that naturally, in a natural sense, which would be more natural in Taurus, that the Scorpio moon person or energy has to work harder to integrate that, to lessen that need for emotional control. That control can go to transform, or transform can go into control. So you're really looking at, with the Scorpio moon energy, wherever that transits in your house, you could say to yourself, when that happens Monday, you could ask yourself, wherever it's transiting, how am I holding on to an illusion of control? What am I doing in this area of my life? If it's the first house, if someone has Scorpio rising, let's say at 20 or 22 degrees, it would transit in their first house. It would be their ascendant. It would be themselves, be their raw self that they show to the world. If it's the 7th house, it would be other people. It could be one-on-one relationships, it could be marriages, and to some extent the public, although the public would be more the 10th. But you could ask yourself where that is. And the interesting thing is, Scorpio moons seek such deep emotional connection. There's no sign for the moon, not even Capricorn. There's no sign that's as serious as a Scorpio moon. Now, if a Scorpio moon is placed in a lighter house or has some gentle sextile or trine aspects, maybe to Pisces, or it's sextile, let's say, to a Virgo or a Capricorn planet, that's might loosen it up, and it might help it to have more of a path. But that, generally speaking, that's going to be it's locked and loaded. Now, so you could argue, and I hear astrologers talk about this and argue about this all the time. So is a moon in Scorpio more of a feminine energy, or is it more masculine energy? It's really both. Again, we have to remember, even though Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and Scorpio is the scorpion or the eagle or the phoenix, Scorpio is water. And, you know, the water signs are very misunderstood. And I think in a lot of ways, especially the moon and water signs, are very misunderstood. The water signs are, not only are they like sponges and empaths that pick up on other people's vibes, but they are mirroring or matching. Water signs often match the energy that's brought to them from others, and or mirror it. And Scorpio, what I see so often in Scorpio planets, that's so frustrating to me. It's so frustrating to me because it's like, when you see the potential in someone or even in yourself, and you're your own stumbling block, right? And you can't get over it. You may get over it eventually, but this moon in Scorpio, there's such a I don't know how to say it. There's such a reluctance to share, and a reluctance to let go of that concealment. And there is absolutely a huge need for privacy, and privacy should be respected. But I think that Scorpio planets, my unpopular opinion is that Scorpio planets miss out a lot on life, because it's not because they don't crave it, and it's not because they don't want it or have the goods to give it. They don't, they don't let enough energy in. Does that make any sense? So think about anyone that you know that has a Scorpio stellium, Scorpio rising, sun, moon, especially Venus, to some extent Mars, although that's energy, but definitely sun, moon, Venus. That's a huge lesson, right? And part of it is Scorpio knows intuitively how strong and how true their energy is. So if their energy is that true blue, of course they're not just going to give that to anybody, nor should you. But not everything in life has to be profound and deep, and not everything in life should be superficial either. And that's a really hard concept for Scorpio moons to understand, that not everything in life has to be life and death. I create, I want. It's like, sometimes in life things are neutral, sometimes things should be more moderated. So that is, to me, that's why I see people with Scorpio, they miss out on certain things. That doesn't mean they don't have a great life or a fun life. Scorpio has a lust for life. And very often people that have major Scorpio accomplish a heck of a lot in life and have a lot of admirers, both friendship-wise and, lovers and things. The allure and magnetism of Scorpio is undeniable for people, especially for sun, moon, Venus, and the risings, and even 8th house planets. But that moon, she is so reluctant. She is emotionally possessive, and she's reluctant to share certain things. Now, a sun in Scorpio person, if this were reversed, right? If we were in this, when we'll have the Taurus moon in November. If that's reversed, it's similar yet different. Now you're taking the moon in Taurus, which is more well placed or more natural. But a sun in Scorpio, the identity of a sun in Scorpio would be easier for them to express, generally speaking, their positive Scorpio traits more so than the moon here. But there is a kind of a T-square here as well. We have Taurus, Here's Aquarius. Here's going to be a Leo rising person. So imagine a baby born Monday afternoon in New York. He or she has this late Leo rising, has this Algol conjunction, and then Aquarius on the 7th, and then this moon in Scorpio, and that's the 3rd house. That's the Gemini house. Wow, that is just like, that's fireworks. But there's so much to talk about. I feel like I could go on all night. You know, it's just a rabbit hole, and that's part of the reason why you see so many astrologers writing and talking about. It's no mistake that there's certain energies in the zodiac that astrologers tune into and that fire us up. You know, I don't think you're going to see as many reels and people talking about Moon and Virgo. Nothing against Moon and Virgo people, and Moon and Virgo people have a lot of fascinating qualities. But I'm just saying, in general, the buzz, you're not going to see. You're just not going to see that. But you know, Scorpio always gets that buzz. But the interesting thing here, we have to also remember, if Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, if you subscribe that Pluto rules this Scorpio moon, it all comes back to this retrograde Pluto in Aquarius, which is so quirky and different than this late Scorpio, right? This is all transformative with knowledge, and it's retrograde, and it's early Capricorn Aquarius cusp energy. So it comes back to this Pluto, which is affecting the early fixed signs, and then here is affecting the late fixed signs. So this is all Pluto. If you subscribe that there's a little bit of a Mars influence to Scorpio, and you want to consider Mars, you have Mars in Leo here, which is direct, and you know, it's not retrograde anymore. And obviously a Mars in Leo, you know, one way you can discern how a person in their chart is going to use their Scorpio energy, because they're not going to let you readily see it. And if you are one of the chosen few in their circle of the major Scorpio person's circle, you're there in their top 3 or 4 people, whether it's a spouse, partner, friendship, or even a family member that you're super close to. If you happen to really see that major Scorpio person, and you really do know them, and you know those other 12 people that they know really don't know them, you can find out from Pluto in their chart, you can find out from Pluto where they're using that energy. You know, if a Scorpio energy is all in the 10th house, they're explosive in their career. There's no way they're not going to make a very intense and penetrating mark on their career. If it's in their 1st house, they will be more Aries, and they will be more straightforward and more apparent. You will see it more. If it's in the 8th house, you put a Scorpio planet in the 8th. Now you have a kind of a double Pluto, you know, double Pluto influence. But you really need to look to Pluto, and you can also look, you know, to a lesser extent, you can look to Mars as well. But that, you know, that is one thing that's really amazing to tap into when we have these full moons. And of course, there's all sorts of people do all sorts of, like, you know, rituals and things. And depending on what you believe in, where Scorpio is in your chart, Scorpio is also, you know, we also forget how kind and sensitive Scorpio can be. And this also comes back to kind of my last point on Taurus, is the Taurus Scorpio polarity energy, this fixed energy. So they're the only 2 signs that are yin. Again, people say Scorpio is ruled by Mars, but Mars is yang. Mars is not yin energy. Mars is not the feminine yin principle. Mars is yang. Pluto can be yang in a sense, because it's transformative and explosive, but it's yin. So if Scorpio, in other words, what I'm saying is the Scorpio energy, I attribute it more to being water, even though it is Scorpio. I attribute Taurus to being earth. And Taurus and Scorpio both being yin and more reserved and fixed. So if you took two other signs that are yin, like Capricorn and Cancer, which we're going to talk about in June with Cancer, Capricorn and Cancer are opposed. They're also both yin, but yet they're cardinal, and they begin seasons. They're initiating seasons, where Taurus and Scorpio come after a cardinal sign that has initiated some kind of new energy, right? So Aries, Taurus comes, Libra starts fall, then Scorpio comes. So we're talking about initiating that energy. But Taurus and Scorpio, those planets, there's so much potential and there's so much reserves of power and strength. But Taurus and Scorpio planets alike can get stuck and can miss out. With Taurus, it can be more of the cautiousness, and they're not being willing to go out of their comfort zone. And for Scorpio, it can be complacency, emotional complacency. Even though Scorpio likes to transform and heal, Scorpio is very much a healing energy. And Scorpio moons, they can often negate some of their negative traits by healing others. So that's one really good thing about Scorpio moon energy. One last point about the full moon is that Scorpio moon energy is very much healing energy. So if the person uses it to heal, it's so strong and powerful that if they're altruistic about it, of what they can do with that, right? If they're narcissistic and dark, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother level. So that Scorpio has such potential, that Scorpio moon has such potential, just like this late Taurus energy has such potential, if they can get out of their own way at times. But I want to just quickly, I know I've gone way over here. I want to just quickly talk about the celebrities here. So I have Billy Squier. He's a rock musician. Now keep in mind, these are celebrities born just this week. So these aren't just any Taurus musicians. They're specifically Taurus musicians that are born this week. And his music is really, really earthy, but it has a wild kind of quality to it. Lar Park Lincoln, she is a horror movie actress. And the reason I put her on here is because she just passed away, I think a week or two ago. And there were some tributes to her. And she's really, really strong in her acting as a woman that fights a villainous energy. And as a Taurus woman who's very physically strong in her roles, she was fighting in a horror movie. She's fighting a Pluto. It really is a Pluto type of energy. So it's like a Taurus and Scorpio thing, which is kind of interesting. Emilio Estevez from the Brat Pack Breakfast Club. Definitely kind of one of the wackier Taurus people, but he's also a very good director and writer. H.H. Holmes, he was a serial killer that he was so clever and so good at building. He built a structure to have the Chicago Fair, but he also built it to harm people. So that's pretty diabolical. But also, you're talking about, again, degrees here that are close to that Algol and that wild energy. So again, depending on when these people grew up, how they grew up, what had happened to them, how they use their energy. And he also had Venus conjunct Algol and the sun in Taurus. So that's pretty dark. Dennis Hopper, old school actor, and very, very much almost like a Marlon Brando type, but more of a Taurus, kind of a natural talent. Pierce Brosnan, from all kinds of James Bond, all kinds of theater, and many, many different shows. He's in a show right now called Mobland, who's very good. And Pierce is very sharp. I can see how mercurial he is, but when he gets mad and he has the bovine stare, he clearly shows that he's a Taurus. Janet Jackson, who will be 60 next year. This year she's turning 59. Next year she's 60. So she'll be coming up on her Saturn return number 2. she, you know, she has an amazing earthy power to her that was different than her brother Michael. She's amazing. And Andrea Core from the Cores, very, very instrumental, no pun intended, in the Cores group. And then I also mentioned here I said for the Saturn transit, I forgot to mention this, November 1996. Anyone born in 96, that's a key pivotal year right now for your Saturn return. So those of you that are turning 29 this year, or have already turned 29 and are going to be the big 30 next year, you are in the thick of this late Saturn Pisces return coming into your early Saturn in Aries. And that also goes for 1966 people, and then also 1936. So 36, 66, 96, and then it would also be 1906 if someone was still alive. Sort of thing. So that, and Billy Corgan has that from the Smashing Pumpkins. He has that. He's born in 67, and he has this new podcast and this whole new tour. And it's funny because he is just turned 58, going on 59, coming up on his Saturn return #2. So you always have to look at those. Those cycles are really, really important to see where people are going to use their energy. And Billy has Mars in Scorpio, but it's not going to be conjunct this moon. He does not have, he has a very early degree, early raw Scorpio, and makes demands. So that's Algol, Gorgon, Medusa, the Ghoul. It waxes and wanes. Oh, that's another thing about Algol. It waxes and wanes according to astronomical articles. The brightness, it's like I don't know what you call that. If it's firmament or something in the brightness of the light or the cluster, it's something. So it goes in and out, and it's erratic and it's a little wild. And that's part of the reference to Medusa and that whole mythology. So that sort of thing. Yeah. So there's more to talk about, but I'm getting a little tired. So I think we're going to wrap it up. But thank you so much for everyone coming in and out. I know there was a bunch of people that came in a little bit, and just want to remind you that my live streams, for now, I'm going to keep them here on YouTube Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, or Saturdays, Friday or Saturday Eastern Standard Time. But please subscribe to Astroscoop 3801 on YouTube. Click all or personalized. I'm also on X, Astro_Scoop. I post pretty much every day. I'm also on Instagram, Astroscoop7, where I do reels at least every other day. And the reels are kind of the short form of, this live stream. And I haven't done any videos lately. I'm sorry about that. I haven't had a video in more than a month, a dedicated video, because I've been putting all of my research into the live streams. But I'm going to try to get into some videos. Brilliant analysis. Thank you so much. How is that for compatibility? Wow. Yes, and if you want, if anybody wants, here's something I'd like to do at some point. I'd like to showcase someone's, like if someone wants to be in the chat ahead of time, you're going to be in the chat, you're going to tune into me on a specific Saturday. If you want, for free, I could do a quick, like a free, like a 10-minute teaser on your chart, give you a 5 or 10-minute intro of what I would do to analyze your chart if you paid for it. And you could give me your information. Obviously, if you have your full time, your time of birth, the time zone, your place and everything. You don't have to give me your last name if you don't want to use your last name, that's fine. But if you want to do that at some point, then we can showcase your chart and I could show the chart. Now I figured out how to do that, and we could talk about that in real time, and then the person could respond, which would be kind of cool. Or other people could respond to them, kind of thing. I want to okay. Oh, first of all, cool. Yeah. So here is one of my emails. This is for anybody, and also on the replay. If you want to contact me or get information, that's the main email I use for Astroscoop. and we'll do that because I'd like to definitely get to a point in the live streams in the future where instead of just talking about, you know, a baby born tonight, someone that's having a baby right this second or in a couple hours, it would be nice if we had, you know, some interaction with the people that are actually in here to see some real life examples. But I truly appreciate, I'm finally over 1,000 subscribers. I know that's not a lot in the scheme of the YouTube universe. That's like nothing, but to me, it's a lot. To me, it's a lot. So I really, really appreciate it. Most of my views are coming from the US. So I really, really appreciate all that, all the support. And you can also donate to me on Venmo, which is at Astroscoop. If you need help with that, please let me know. I could send you the link. And any amount is welcome. It's just about the thought, not the amount. 25 cents, I don't care, $1, anything. Just any energy to keep things moving is great. So thank you for sharing with this new browser here with StreamYard. I think I might try this again next week. This seems pretty cool. Could do different stuff. And we'll see you next week. And I may try to do a quick, maybe a very, very quick 10 or 15 minute live stream on the full moon. I'm not sure if I can do it Monday with my schedule, but maybe either Monday evening or Tuesday. Try to do it close. I might just spontaneously do a quick thing on the moon and maybe kind of do it mostly for Taurus and Scorpio people, just for Taurus and Scorpio planets, since that's the sun-moon combination. So look for that. I'll try to do that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, but I'll try and see if I could do that. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everyone be safe. And on the full moon, just breathe. You know how full moons are. And it's an incredibly powerful one with the Scorpio moon ruled by Pluto in Aquarius. So I really appreciate it. But thank you. Be safe. Be kind to each other. And we'll see you next week.